Medical Intuitive Insights with your host, Dr. Gloria Warren, is a program that presents topics on medical intuition, holistic opportunities outside of mainstream society, and scientific research as applied today. Topics range from online intuitive readings to interviews unveiling alternative healing modalities and discussing them with inspirational leaders. Dr. Warren is the bridge within holistic arts while stressing the balance between the spiritual and physical self. So now, please welcome the host of Medical Intuitive Insights, Dr. Gloria Warren.
What if laughter is part of recovery? When was the last time addiction let you smile? Can comedy help heal a rewired brain? Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Warren, and you are watching Medical Intuitive Insights. Whether you're in recovery, supporting somebody in recovery, or just trying to recover from today, welcome. I want to say something important right now, out of the gate. If you're here today, you've shown up. And honestly, that already puts you ahead of where many of us have been. This isn't a show about addiction. This is a show about how being human with bad coping skills, good intentions, and a really creative brain that sometimes chooses chaos. Please welcome my guest, comedian Joe Huisman. Hi, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm glad to have you here with us. I mean, your experience and your comedy really has helped many people. And that's a lot about what we want to get out here in the open today. Glad to have you, and, feel free to key in whenever you like. I just want people to realize that addiction doesn't mean you're weak. It means your brain learned a shortcut and forgot to read the warning label. So, because be honest, none of us woke up one day and said, you know what sounds fun? Destroying my life slowly. So, yeah.
That's a great
I
way to
sent
put it.
your
I'm going to steal that.
Go right ahead. Yeah, I mean, your videos, I looked at your Facebook page, and how wonderful is that? You have so many good short clip videos on there, and excellent thoughts for people getting over addiction or living with somebody that has addictions. And, one thing you mentioned when we were talking is it's not something that just goes away. Once you're an addict and you're willing to admit it, it basically can stick around your whole life. Isn't that true?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people I usually say I used to be a drug addict, but there's a lot of people that say they're in recovery and they will always be in recovery. And it's just the way, I think it's how you want to look at it. But I think it all stems from something deeper inside of us that probably started in our childhood. And so I think just like anything else in mental health, it's a continuous journey of healing. I don't think we're ever fully healed from anything. I don't think we're fully enlightened. I think it's a path, right? Like it's a journey to try to get better and get healthier as time goes on. So,
right. So basically, we're just trying to feel less pain, less anxiety, less everything, and accidentally pick the fast lane to consequences, so it's something that sticks with your whole life. But recovery is basically learning how to feel feelings without immediately Googling how to escape them. And yeah, I don't. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think that's a big misconception about addiction. Is I think a lot of people think that drug addicts are people that just chose bad decisions and chose to get into drugs, and I think they're oftentimes frowned upon. But I think in reality, some of the most beautiful souls that ever came to this earth, like they looked around, they said, I don't fit in here, and then they looked for a way to numb it, right? So it's oftentimes some of the kindest people you'll ever meet are people that went down the path of addiction. So
right. And can you explain a little bit more, like what makes somebody start to do drugs or whatever their addiction is, alcohol or whatever that may be?
I'm not a therapist, but I think there's a lot of
No,
different
but from
reasons.
your perspective.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of times people they enjoy the feeling of it. And I know, like, just speaking from my personal experience, I started cocaine because it helped me to drink more socially, because I didn't have a very high tolerance for alcohol, but a little bit of
Mhm.
cocaine, and suddenly my tolerance, surpassed my peers. So I used it as kind of a coping mechanism just to be able to drink socially. But then after a while, I realized that I really enjoyed the numbing feeling of the cocaine, and it became overpowering. Like I was chasing that feeling more than I was using it to manage my alcohol consumption better. But but yeah, I think
No,
there's a
this
lot
is
of
not
different
a
reasons.
how-to video, by the way, out there.
That's
Just
how it's
letting everybody know. Okay, go right ahead.
I want to encourage you. But I think there's a lot of different reasons. I think sometimes people grow up around it, so they're exposed to it at a young age. I think a lot of times they find that it's a way to numb the feelings that they don't want to have, as you stated earlier. It's a way
Mhm.
to turn off the world. It's a way to cope. It's a way to deal with things. And I think over time you just start to enjoy that feeling that you're getting from whatever your drug of choice is. You enjoy it so much that it becomes all consuming for you. But I think, for me, when I quit doing drugs, I had been doing drugs so long that I thought drugs were the problem. But
Mhm.
I quit doing drugs and I went on with my life, but I never dealt with any of the issues that led me down that path in the first place until about 20 years later, when I realized that I was continuing to struggle in life and causing problems for myself outside of addiction and using substances. And so that's when I really started to dig in and do some of that healing work that I needed to do.
When you realize that it wasn't the drugs that was
No.
the root of the problems, you realize you needed to go back to the root of the problems and try to fix that in your brain and your
No.
concepts and conceptual understanding of why and what and who and everything else, right?
It's funny too because about 10 years ago I met this pastor somewhere and I was telling him about my past drug addiction, and he asked me, he said, "Did you ever really, sit down and evaluate like why you got into
Mhm.
drugs in the first place?" And my response at the time was, "No, I don't care. I don't do drugs anymore. What difference does it make?" And it took another 5, 6 years after that before I realized that he was right. I really need to dig in and find out, why did I go down this path? What is inside of me from my childhood that's really coming up and causing me to want to turn the world off or numb this feeling. So
Or even just feel like you want to be a part of the group, I think is a
yeah.
common one as well. I've seen some young people start to do drugs just because they thought that's the thing to do. And well, as you get older, you realize that's not the thing to do. But, sometimes it's hard to make people understand that when they're younger. So even when they're older, sometimes as well. Yeah, I think
it,
it's,
it, I was going to say it's definitely really easy to build a social group around a substance. I mean,
yeah,
I was into smoking crack. I didn't really have any requirements for my friends other than we all smoked crack together, right? Like we didn't have to have anything else in common for us to enjoy being around each other because that was
right.
the common ground. So yeah, it's a quick and easy way to fit in for sure.
Yeah, one, two, three, bam, done, right?
Yes,
Little too easy if you think about it.
yes, it really is.
Especially if you're the one that nobody invites you anywhere, or you like to stay at home a lot, so you're not doing a lot of activities. And that's why I say with kids, I remember when I was teaching special ed, I always said give the kids a track to run on, and I truly believe that. Always give the kids a track to run on. Keep them so busy with extracurricular activities and everything else, and learning, and just time alone with family, I think is very important. This is a Christian show, so I always bring things up like that. Christian values of just being alone with your children without texting and phones and everything. It's a good thing just to go back to the roots and take them to the beach, or take them to a regular movie for a change, or just, hang out somewhere with them wherever they want to hang out, just so that you can build those bonds, and then be honest with your talk with your children. Talk to them, say, okay, I always gave my kids choices. Well, if you do this, this is what'll happen. If you do this, this is what'll happen. And then they're like, oh, then I just want to do this. Of course, and explain the consequences. Like you said, Joe, it's not something you truly get over. I think one of your videos I was looking at, it talked about somebody asked you if you were at a party and there was cocaine on the table, what would you do? What would you do?
Like today.
Any day.
I mean, so that is a concern of mine. I mean, if I don't really consume any, I don't really drink, I don't really do anything anymore. But the drug that really consumed me was cocaine or crack, either one. And so it's been about 25 years, and
Wow.
I know that thank you. But I have to be aware. Like I don't know what would happen if I was sitting in a room and somebody dumped something on a table. And so I think one of the biggest reasons that I avoid drinking is because if I do have a couple of drinks and that happens, I'm sure I would make the mistake of thinking I could handle just doing a little bit. And so yeah, so I do consciously make sure that I avoid situations where that temptation might present itself. I will say, though, that in one of the darkest times of my life, I was at a convenience store and I was behind this woman that was in line, and she had a little thing of Brillo in her hand. And I was just
Hmm.
watching her, and she got up. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but on the counter at a lot of convenience stores, these little glass tubes that have a rose inside of it. And those are actually pipes. And when she got up to the counter, she reached over and she grabbed one of those to go with the Brillo, because those two together are how you make your pipe. And I just remember thinking, I was in a really dark place, and I was thinking all I'd have to do is just talk to her, and I could be, getting high with her right now. And it was really an interesting moment, because I don't think if there's ever a time in my life that I ever would have been tempted, that would have been it, because of what I was going through. So. But I
Yeah.
still, like I said, I consciously make sure that I don't put myself in situations where temptation is going to be there, because one mistake could send me right back to where I was.
Right. And I think part of recovery is knowing the best boundaries that you can consider and try to follow. Nothing's ever 100%, obviously, but it's good to know that, hey, if I know if I drink something, it's going to let down my guard and I'll be more apt to doing things that I don't want to really do, but my brain will like take over and just, I'll end up doing it. So I commend you with that. I really do. It's been a while since you've done any drugs, but I really feel that I'm happy that
I think
you
I lost
figured it
you. I
out
don't know.
and you walked the walk and you got where you are today because you are helping a lot of people. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit in the show. But before we continue, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about why laughter isn't denial, it's regulation. We'll be right back.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are talking with our comedian guest, Joe Huisman, about recovery, connection, and why laughing together matters more than we were ever told. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Let's talk about families for a second, because addiction doesn't come alone. It always brings a whole emotional support suitcase with it. So I'm sure you know as well that families become detectives and therapists, mind readers, and professional tone analyzers, and they pretty much can scope out things with you once they know or feel they know what's going on. Is that right?
I have to apologize. Something with the audio cut out there, and I didn't hear the full question there. So.
Oh, you know how the family members become detectives, sort of, and they can analyze you, even the tone of your voice, when you're an addict, especially if you're doing drugs at the time. They kind of catch on. I mean, if they're paying attention, anyways. Even like if you notice one sentence can mean 17 different things to an addict and to the family members. So I'm fine translates I'm not fine. Don't ask. I love you. I'm overwhelmed. And please don't make us this weird, you know. So, I mean, the whole thing just can be gobbledygook. It's not really the truth of what's happening when people talk. And everybody knows, an addict, even an alcoholic, knows when you say, I'm fine, it's not that you're fine. And it's not really the answer to the question of how are you, you know? So there comes a separate vocabulary and nuances. What's your experience?
Well, I think one thing about addicts is they become master manipulators, right? They're always planning on how they're going to get high. They're always, working on their cover story. They're all, like there's so much manipulation, I think, that goes into using, especially like at the level that I was at. I mean, everything. If I'd be at work, I work in restaurants, and I would ask 5 people if I could borrow money to buy a pack of cigarettes, because if I could get $5 from 4 people, that was enough to get some drugs. And ironically, people would lend me money to buy cigarettes, but not to buy drugs. But yeah, it's. I think there is like, and I think if you live with somebody, I think you start to learn to pick up on, like, when you start to discover that there's a real issue, you start to key into some of those nuances, some of that language they use. And I think that's why it's really difficult for someone in recovery to regain trust with their family, because their family has been so used to being disappointed and being lied to and being manipulated that it's really hard to regain that trust with them, and takes oftentimes years or maybe never. I know a lot of people that get in, when they start in their recovery journey, they get so frustrated that their family doesn't instantly accept that everything they say is true. And it's like, that's because they've been dealing with you for 20 years of lies and manipulation. So it's going to take a little while for them to see a change in you. But yeah, they're definitely, I think.
So, humor really helps families too. For families, laughter helps regulate emotional tension, reduces chronic stress responses associated with caregiving and trauma exposure. There's a lot of research on that's from Fredrickson, 2001, and he also mentioned a positive shared experiences improve resilience and emotional recovery after prolonged stress. So families, listen carefully. You did not cause the problem. You couldn't control it, no matter how hard you tried, and you couldn't cure it. But you can laugh together about some of the stories you went through when the person was actually doing the drugs. And the laughter can help heal the families. And this is, Joe, I think this is what you're a lot about. I noticed your shows, they're always centered around personal things and vocabulary and things that you did that turned out to be really funny, but you didn't know it at the time. I don't know, and the families and all that. Go
I
ahead.
think that one of the things about doing a show around addiction and recovery is I don't think there's an addict in the world that doesn't have some ridiculous stories. In fact, a lot of times when I'm talking to a comedian about being on the show, they'll share something. They'll share a little bit of their story with me, and it can be something really horrific. And my first reaction is like, "Oh, that's awesome," because I'm thinking about it from a perspective of being on the show. And then sometimes, oh, but wait, that wasn't awesome. It's great because it fits the show. But there is a lot of content that's naturally built into being an addict or being somebody in recovery. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's really, I think the challenge for me with finding people to be on the show is one, do you have a story you want to share? Two, are you passionate about wanting to make a difference in the world? Three, can you be a little authentic on stage? And four, are you funny? And to find somebody that fits all that criteria can be a little challenging at times. But I do think it's powerful. Like if we can share a story on stage and there's people in the audience that can relate to our story and we can find a way to make it funny together, I do feel that there's a little bit of relief or a little bit of maybe shame that people can let go of, and that's kind of the goal and the aim of the show is to chip away at that
Right.
stigma, chip away at the shame. So,
Oh, exactly. The interesting part is laughter isn't just a distraction, it's biology doing something beautiful in your brain. When we laugh, the
yeah,
brain releases chemicals that say you're safe right now, you're connected, you can breathe. And for somebody in recovery, feeling safe in your own body again, that's not comedy, that is actually medicine. I
yeah.
noticed too that when I was watching your videos, that's what I was seeing. I was seeing medicine at work with the people in the audience. What you do is so important because you took groups, maybe not all of them were addicts, some were the families of addicts, and some were just people curious, but you gave them laughter, and that became medicine to them with this whole scenario that they've had to live through, or maybe that they can apply in other parts of their lives. But it was just really out there and very important. What has been your most um, moving time when you were on stage looking at the audience?
Hmm.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
an
That's I
interesting
hear that.
question. I think there is something about comedy when I first started that's and I started doing some small shows and getting some laughs
Hmm.
and I was talking to somebody that I was working with for some coaching a little bit, and she said, "Joe, you've never felt a true connection on stage yet at this level." And I didn't really understand what she meant, but I will never forget. We did a show at a place called Free Recovery Community that's in Denver, and it's essentially a church. It's loosely based on Christianity, but its main focus is on recovery, and it's there for people in recovery. And we did a show there, and I can't remember the exact joke, but I just remember there was one moment where the response from the audience almost knocked me on my feet. Like it was such a powerful feeling to just like that's what she was talking about, is that
Yeah.
connection, that feeling like we are together in this and we are all feeling this funny moment together, and it was really powerful. That's the one that stands out to me the most. But there's been a lot of times at shows where it's just you feel that the audience is engaged, they're appreciating it, and it's not just when I'm up there, when the other comedians are up there as well. And it's just really neat. And then to hear the feedback from some of the attendees afterwards is just always fantastic. When you hear people sharing a little bit about their journey, or there's one person on the show that she grew up around addiction, and so she shares her story is about that angle of it. And somebody came up to her afterwards and said, I never really thought about how I impacted my family until I was listening to you today. So it's just knowing those moments where we actually had an impact, that somebody is taking something away from the show, is really,
Hmm.
really incredible feeling. So,
You know, I may not have been an addict, at least that I'm not. I have no of any kind yet, but I do know I grew up in a family of alcoholics, and some were good alcoholics, some you're not, and a couple of them stopped drinking, where a couple may not have. And it's interesting. They use every excuse in the book just to be able to drink. And I noticed when I got stressed, I caught myself one time, oh God, I need a drink. Wait a minute. Why did I trigger that? I don't need a drink. I need laughter. I love comedy. I think comedy is fantastic. I actually put together some skits and I did them for a couple of members of my family once. They could not stop laughing, falling over in their chair. It was great. But it was taking those stories, and I love that you take the stories and you go with that. And those stories they could be horrible at the time. It's such a contrast. And then you turn around and you can make comedy out of it. That's an art. I mean, that's just wonderful, beautiful. Well,
I could share countless stories about crazy things that I've done.
Mhm.
So lots of material.
Right. So we're going to pause for a moment, take another commercial break. When we return, we'll explore the science, what it says about humor, the brain, and why recovery needs more joy, not less. We'll be right back.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Welcome back. We're continuing a conversation about healing, humanity, and why laughter may be one of the most underused recovery tools. So, what actually happens when you laugh? Well, many things. When people laugh, real, genuine laughter, that is, the brain releases dopamine, that wonderful feeling with dopamine, helping to restore reward system activity that is often blunted in addiction. Laughter also triggers the release of endorphins, the body's natural pain relieving and mood enhancing chemicals. At the same time, laughter lowers cortisol, the primary stress hormone, and has been linked to relapse vulnerability. These chemical shifts activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which signals safety and calm to the body. Unfortunately, substances that people misuse or use and get addicted to also do some of those same things. So laughter itself can help to replace that sensation in your brain. That's why it's so important during recovery to have laughter in your life. The brain has the ability to change throughout your life, a process called neuroplasticity. And positive emotional experiences, including humor and social engagement, help form neural pathways that support emotional regulation and decision making. This means recovery isn't just behavioral, it's neurological. The brain can relearn healthier experiences and responses. So, our guest is Joe today. And Joe, do you feel that laughter, when you watch people's faces, do you feel that laughter is actually doing just that, releasing endorphins, dopamine, and things of that nature to change the way they feel, not just laughing in itself?
No, for sure. I mean, I think, even in my own situations, I mean, that's always, I know growing up, that was my dad's big thing. Whenever you were in a bad mood or crabby about something, he would always do something to make you laugh. And then just laughing would then change your whole mood, your whole perspective on the situation. And so, yeah, but I think definitely when we can get people laughing and laughing hard, I think that it helps them to kind of maybe forget about their troubles for a moment. They're feeling connected, they're feeling part of something. But I think, yes, there's definitely that release that endorphins that makes you feel better. And I mean, even just physically forcing yourself to smile can kind of feel a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
I know I've had moments, I know years ago, I discovered the power of just talking to myself a certain way. But I remember I was having kind of a really down day, and I was in the morning and I just gotten up, and I said to myself, I said, I don't want to live anymore. And I just stopped and I thought about it, and I said it again. I said, I want to live. And it was just changing that and saying it out loud. Just I could feel it differently, right? And so I think laughter is along with that. It's how we talk to ourselves, how we treat ourselves. So if we just make everything serious and depressing, and that's how we're looking at every little aspect of life, then we're going to go right down into that hole. But if we try to look for the humor, we try to look for the fun, we try to look for the positive on everything, we're going to be raised up. And so, yeah, I think laughter, along with how we talk to ourselves and how we think about things, is all tied together to make us feel better, and that's contagious.
Yeah. Yeah. I so agree. Every now and then I'll run across somebody. If you crack a joke, they just kind of look at you and they like look down at you, and they're like, it's like, oh my God, life is supposed to be fun. Even in the Bible, they want you to have fun, sing, enjoy. And if you can't do it naturally, you're in trouble. And then if you're not going to sing and be in joy, you're going to get sick. I mean, your body is just going to hold in a lot of negativity that can create diseases and mental disorders and things of all even especially depression. I mean, laughter can cross from one side to the other. It's the bridge between recovery by itself and a healthy recovery mentally as well as physically. So I really think laughter, like, I'm going to say this one more time, I am so grateful to you that you are out there doing what you are doing. You are a joy to meet, a joy to speak with, and a joy to have on the show. It has been wonderful talking to you, even on the phone before the show. I mean, you made me laugh. Who wouldn't like to laugh, you know? I just couldn't do without that. But I just I'm just so grateful for you.
You reminded me of something somebody said to me in my teens. It was a older person that I knew, and he looked at me at one point and he said, Joe, life's far too important to take seriously. And I thought that was such a
Yeah.
great line, because it is. And especially like with the political climate that we're dealing with right now, and people are just so, like, you get on social media and everybody is so angry, and it's like, I understand your anger and I understand what you're concerned about, but this isn't like, it's not healthy to just be angry all the time. It's
Hmm.
going to
And
cause
in today's
physical
world,
problems with you. Yeah.
right, turn off the news, go see a comedy show, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't be
Please.
passive compliant to yourself. Get up and do
don't
something else.
don't just see a comedy show. See a second chance comedy show like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of passive compliance, you want to explain to our audience what that is?
Yeah, that was a joke I did. I say that I suffer from something called passive noncompliance. And then I give a couple examples. I say it's like when you leave one piece of toilet paper on the roll so you don't have to change it after you're done going to the bathroom, or you leave one cube of ice in the tray so you don't have to refill it before you put it back. But then the tie-in is like, but I'm not a jerk. Like, I would never do these things to somebody I care about. I live alone. And so, like, the idea is that I'm doing this to myself. Like, it's not, and it's actually interesting too, because there's something deeper there, and that, like, and even my therapist has called me out on this, but it's like, I would never treat myself, or I would never treat others as bad as I treat myself. Like, it's, so there's some reality. Like, if I did live with somebody, I would always be considerate and fill the ice tray or change the toilet paper roll. But it's just me. So it's interesting. We're our own worst critics. We're nicer to people than we are to ourselves. We speak better, like, we would never
Mhm.
speak horribly, or, I would hope, like, we speak much kinder to other people than we do to ourselves. But when it's ourselves, like, I'm an idiot, I can't believe I'm so stupid, like, we start to use that internal language, which I had a really strong moment in just my journey here. where I kind of came to this conclusion that we are all a product of our experiences, our upbringings, our influences. And so when I meet somebody that I don't enjoy being around, or I don't
Mhm.
agree with them or whatever, it's like no matter what, I can look at them and think, okay, they're a product of their experiences, but I can still have compassion for the human that's underneath this, the damaged human that was led down this road that made them this way. And I was talking to my therapist about that, and she looked at me and she said, "Have you ever thought about turning that lens on yourself?" and so it was, and that was really
Mm.
a tough thing to hear. But it's like, yeah, I can have compassion for everybody else, but me. That tied with something else she said to me once. She said, "You know, Joe, you're not the worst person on the planet." And that was a really powerful thing because she didn't say, "Joe, you're not a bad person." She said, "You're not the worst person on the planet." And that's when it hit me that that's how I
Mhm.
was treating myself. I was treating myself like I was worse than anybody you can think about. I was the most horrible person on the planet. That's how I looked at myself, and that's how I was treating myself. And so, those things tied together really helped me to kind of overcome some of the challenges that I was dealing with.
You actually changed your mind about yourself, and thank goodness you did, because now look at how many people you're helping to heal. You know,
Uh, a,
this is
a little bit.
fantastic.
It's still a work in progress.
Always. I think we all are, whether we're an addict or
Yeah.
not, or even whether we have family members that are or not. I mean, we're all a work in progress. I remember somebody told me one day, they said, don't be such a Debbie Downer. And I was like, I didn't realize I was that depressed. And I'm like, oh my God, they were right. And I started, oh my gosh, everything out of my mouth was so negative. And I was like, that's me. I'm just, usually my natural self is very cheerful, there for the grace of God go I. And I was being so dark. And it made me stop and realize I need to change this. This should not be what is happening. I had to change my attitude and get out of that pessimistic thing and become more optimistic. And I caught myself going into that a couple of times in my life, and needed to stop, and I did. And I'm so glad I did. I don't know if it'll ever happen again, but I'm going to try and stay positive.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. I was part of this like men's group thing for a while, and I remember one time I was in one of these sessions, and I just brought up this idea. I said, "It seems like most people like me, but I don't like myself," and we did a lot of talking and kind of some exercises that we did, and that I think all stems from stuff that happens when we were a child, and
Mhm.
whatever environment. And it's really easy to it took me a long time. Like I blamed my parents for so many of my problems, and and it took a long time to realize that no, my parents did the best that they could with what they had to work with. They never intentionally did anything to cause. It's not like they just woke up and said, "I want to be a bad parent to Joe." But there are things that maybe skills that they didn't have, or things that were outside of their control, or whatever it could be, that I think did kind of plant these seeds that grew into some of the things that I'm facing today. That's another dumb joke I do. It doesn't quite land that well, but I say, yeah, I've been going to therapy for a while and it's working, which sucks because I really liked being the victim. Life was so
You
much
need to get
easier when
rid
I
of
could just
that.
blame everybody
Yep.
else. Yeah.
Yep.
So
One question though I have for you is, you don't have a burner phone right now, do you?
no,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I remember you
no,
talking about that.
no.
That's
It's
good.
nice too when if I do get pulled over, I don't have to freak out, or if there's a police officer behind me, I don't have to be scared. So.
Right. And another thing I noticed when I was looking at your videos, you said a statement that really hit me. And I don't think it's something that most people um, usually hear of or even understand. And that is, it's not easy being an addict. You know, can you explain why you said that?
I'm not sure what you're
Probably the
referring to,
guilt,
but
right? Because you feel guilt, and you don't want, you're hiding things all the time. And I mean, that's what I got out of it. And I
yeah,
kept
I mean,
thinking, it's a good point.
no, I mean, they're definitely. I mean, it isn't easy. I mean, you are. like I said, you're always manipulating, you're always trying to con, you're always trying to
Mhm.
it's, but that's, yeah, I mean, my whole life was figuring out how I was going to get high. Like I would work double shifts and pick up extra shifts at work and stuff because everything was, the more hours I get, the more money I get, and the higher I could get, the more drugs I could get, So it pretty much became that ritual. But like things as simple as, like, I lived in an apartment for a while where I didn't have a phone because I didn't pay the phone bill. I've had electricity disconnected in places I've lived. I've had cars that, I had a car. It was a 5 speed. I drove it for 2 years with a broken starter, where I would just pop start it, pop the clutch to start it every time because I
Those
didn't
were
want
the
to spend
days.
that $150 to fix the starter, because $150 is a good amount of drugs and a
Yep.
good fun night. But yeah, so it is. And then just like just navigating the normal stuff that people, I think one
Right.
thing that I remember is, like, even something as simple as getting gas. It kind of felt like, okay, I've got to interact with the world for a minute here. You pull into the pump, you get the gas real quick, you keep your head down, you get in your car and you drive away. It was always as little
Exciting.
interaction with like the normal people, as
Right.
possible. So yeah, but I think the reference that you're making might be the, because I have a joke where I said, how hard it was to be an addict when you look like this,
Oh,
because
right, right. Wait, hold that. That's a joke I want everybody to hear. We got to take one more commercial break. When we come back, we'll close with something every person in recovery and every family member needs to hear, as well as what Joe's going to say. You're going to love it. We'll be right back.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. Let's finish strong, because recovery isn't about being perfect. It's about staying connected. Joe, you were just about ready to tell us something. Please continue on.
Well, no, you were talking about one of my jokes, and really, one of the things I've been fortunate with is the fact that, in my recovery, I think that I've maintained my health, and I look pretty healthy today. But even back in the day, I kind of looked like this. So my joke is, do you know how hard it was to be an addict when you look like this? Like, even back in the day, people would go to pass me the pipe, and they'd be like, "Are you sure you're not a cop?" And that was, so that's the joke, is that I couldn't buy drugs from people that didn't know me because everybody thought I was suspicious. And so, and it's, and then now, now that I'm talking about being a drug
That's
addict, a lot of
affirmative.
people, yeah, that's affirmative. Pass me the pipe, civilian. Yeah, but now I think people look at me and they're like, "Are you sure you used to be a drug addict?" Like, they're still. So it's it's always the wrong place, wrong time, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I bet you're proud of yourself, though, and you should be, very much so. Social connection is one of the most reliable protective factors against a relapse. Science has proven this, and from research studies. And isolation, on the other hand, increases stress reactivity and relapse. And that study was done in 2008. We have to stick with family. We have to stick with friends. Hope without preaching. Recovery isn't about being perfect or becoming perfect. It's about becoming present. It's about realizing you're allowed to be joyful again without earning it through pain. Today, if you laughed even once, your nervous system got a break. And sometimes that break is what keeps us going. Bottom line, laughter doesn't minimize addiction. It supports the very brain systems and function on which recovery depends on. When people laugh in recovery settings, they're not avoiding any healing. They are participating in their healing. So if you're in recovery, I'm glad you're here. If you love someone in recovery, thank you for staying. And if tonight or today, reminding you that you're still human, still funny, still worthy, when this did exactly what it was supposed to do. Joe, please let the audience know how they can contact you, maybe schedule in a show at their next event or even at the school, or for any questions about your services.
Sure, absolutely. So we do have a website at secondchancecomedy.com, and second is spelled out SECOND. It's not the number 2. So secondchancecomedy.com. You can subscribe to our newsletters. Send out emails about upcoming shows. There's also a shows tab. It lists all of the shows that we have scheduled today. There's a few I still need to get up there. And then you can also reach out to me through the website. There's a contact us form. Or you can email me at Joe, Joe, at secondchancecomedy.com, secondchancecomedy.com, all spelled out. That comes right to me as well. So, but yeah, secondchancecomedy.com. That's the website.
Yeah, don't forget that. It's very important. And Joe, by the way, I thank you so much for being on our show. I'm sure that the show will help other people and maybe guide them to you, and so that they could perhaps be a part of your audience soon. Take care of yourself, and don't forget Proverbs 17:22. That is, Scripture reminds us that a cheerful heart is good medicine. And today, if you've laughed even once, maybe your heart received exactly what it needed. Therefore, the grace of God go I, and thank you to our audience. See you next time.
This has been Medical Intuitive Insights with host Dr. Gloria Warren. Tune in each week as Gloria shares over 40 years of experience and yearns to provide knowledge derived from intuition and research. Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern.